In October 2016, ProtoSimTech sent us these rather nice PT1 pedals to review. It's now January 2017 and we've put a good few virtual miles on these pedals, so I thought it'd be nice to give you our feedback and let you know how we've been getting on with them. Here we have the most advanced coffee table in the United Kingdom, featuring Club Sport V2s, PT1 pedals, some Thrustmaster pedals. The PT1 pedals, the nitty gritty. Let's first go over the negatives of these pedals after having used them for a while. At first, or after, before we sort of tweaked them and stuff, we did find that the metal would sometimes be a little bit squeaky, and the pedals themselves could be quite noisy. Also, the brake at the back occasionally would make a sort of a clicky sound under high pressure. Having said that, what we did to address that was I got some WD40, water dispersant 40, put that on some of the joints, and we also used lithium grease on the various components and had it all got it all greased and lubricated up, and that seemed to eliminate that issue. So I don't know if that is the pedals, my temperature or environment, but that issue has essentially been resolved. Part of the big changes that we made to them, following on from another issue, which isn't really an issue, was the clutch. Now, the clutch has an absolutely incredible digressive clutch mechanism on it to give a sort of bite point, so you can actually feel when the clutch is engaged and when you can shift in a game. As you know, with simulators, there's practically no feel for the clutch, and with a gear stick, it'll just go into gear regardless of if you could or not in reality. So the digressive clutch is fantastic, but it's really quite noisy, and if you've got a games room that's really separate to the rest of your house, and maybe your floor isn't made of wood and you don't live in an Edwardian building, it won't be a problem. You can have your clutch as noisy as you want, you could have your rig be as noisy as you want, especially if you game with, if you've got your speakers to game with rather than headphones as well. But if, like me, you have a partner that somehow can't hear my voice when I require help with anything, but can very easily hear the slightest squeak of the sim rig, then you might find the clutch too noisy. And what we've done is we had to remove the digressive clutch mechanism, so now the clutch is just a sort of linear, very much like the accelerator pedal, and very much like the clutch on most units. You can still set the clutch up really stiff, and the clutch does have it's got like a bumper on it, a sort of bump stop, so you can still feel when you push the clutch all the way down. And what we did is we've also moved things forwards a bit, so we don't have to push the clutch as far, making it less likely for us to miss shift. But yeah, if quiet is important, if minimising noise is important, then these pedals might not be perfect, or they might make a bit too much noise for you. But with some adjustment, you can kind of get around that. So those really are, I think, the only two real actual negatives, but debatable negatives. Everything else with them is pretty bloody fantastic. Of course, one of the points of higher end pedals is the adjustability, and we slapped them on the rig initially for about 2 or 3 weeks without changing them, just to get an idea of how ProtoSimTech had set them up, and how they'd been intended, or how Chris at ProtoSimTech had put them together. And it was a really good basic setup and perfectly fine. Personally, I prefer a stiffer accelerator pedal, and to fix that or to change that, all we did was adjust the spring, and I also adjusted the throw of the pedal. It was a little bit fiddly to get the pedal arm perfectly right so that it used the full range of the potentiometer, but not too bad. I mean, I think you're talking about sort of 2 hours really if you've got to take the pedals off your rig and about 2 hours to make these sort of adjustments. Once you got it off your rig, probably about 30 minutes per pedal to make reasonably substantial adjustments to the pedals. But we stiffened up the accelerator so that now it's a lot easier, or for my personal preference, to balance in that last sort of half centimetre or so, where you find that a lot of cars will kick out under acceleration, or where you really need to balance the throttle. You notice it especially like DTM cars in racing experience, or more sensitive, some of the older vehicles in Automobilista, and just cars in general. When you're balancing the throttle out corners, having that be stiff and push back at you is fantastic. And also, a nice thing with the stiffness is the return on the accelerator is, you know, if you just took your foot off it completely, it's going to slap back with quite a clank. Absolutely awesome on the accelerator pedal. The adjustments to the brake pedal we ended up making is I don't know if this was the default configuration, because we've changed it around a couple of times before we settled on it, but we just went for having, it's got a little bit of a initial push to it, which allows you to sort of distribute the weight forwards in your car. Then we've got the soft rubber, and then the super hard rubber. But it just gives you an extraordinary amount of control over the braking of your vehicle, and requires very little skill to use. Now, if you've seen our driving from when we live stream, or just, you know, I'm not an alien sim racer, I'm not a pro driver, I'm not the most skilled at driving, and one thing I've noticed with the brake pedal especially, and also the accelerator, but with the brake pedal especially on these PT1s, is that they've made my driving a lot more nuanced and a lot smoother, because it takes less skill to use the brake. You're going around the corner, you're like, oh, I'll just lean on the brake with my foot a tiny bit, and that'll nose it in. And when it comes to hitting brake points, you look where the brake marker is, and you stamp, and you've got a very defined feel for the different amounts of pressure on the brake, so you can learn very quickly how much pressure you can put on before the wheels are going to lock up with your given car in the given simulator, and then just use your brake point as a reference. I was never able to do that to the same extent with these Club Sport V2s, but I would say, and I've not tested it yet, I wouldn't be surprised if the Pro mod for the V3 Club Sport V3 pedals, where it uses a similar, it's a lot smaller and not as sturdy, but a similar rubber based dampener rather than the PU foam dampener that you got on the Club Sport V2s. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually comes relatively close to what you get from these pedals. So we'll check that out at some point. But back to the PT1s, the brake is absolutely phenomenal, and I'd say transformed how I've approached and how I've enjoyed certain cars in driving simulators. Now the clutch, as I say, we removed the digressive clutch mechanism, but it's a potentiometer based clutch, just works as you would expect, and is absolutely fantastic. Moving on from the pedal base structure to the pedal plate faces, ProtoSimTech sent us not only the aluminium, I actually struggle now, I almost say aluminum because I've been corrupted by talking to too many Americans. They sent us not only the aluminium pedal faces, but they also sent us the curved plastic pedal faces. Personally, I wouldn't bother getting the additional or the curved pedal faces. I'd just stick with the aluminium ones, but it is nice having it on the accelerator, I found, and I've just kept that way. Partly because it's got the curve to it, so it makes applying the throttle again just gives you that sort of ability to have a variable angle to it. Though I think if it had a greater curvature on it, that would be even better. But also it's just nice to have a different textured pedal for the accelerator compared to the brake. And when it comes to heel and toeing, this is slightly further forwards, combined with how I've configured the brake or the actual arm tilt, and so it just works out well for me. But the aluminum pedal faces are gorgeous and work perfectly fine. The absolutely ludicrously big brake pedal face is really handy as well, so that you can always find the brake pedal in case you have a tendency to get lost with your feet in your sim rig, which can happen. It's actually quite nice having that ginormous brake pedal. And also I found, sometimes you're being lazy and you tend to use the brake at the touch to get at the top to get more leverage, and sometimes you push the brake more at the bottom, so it's not as sensitive. That's probably a bad thing to do, but I found myself doing that, and it's again helped me drive more consistently. But really, I mean, there's not really much more to say. They've been completely rock solid from when we've had them. I've probably spent about 5 or 6 hours messing with the actual, sort of adjusting them and tweaking them. I'm getting that play time out of them, which you can adjust. Your Club Sport V2s and presumably the Club Sport V3s. You can adjust these, but they're not. They're a bit of a pain in the arse to adjust these Club Sport pedals. That's not really not the Club Sport pedals. They're really, for the price that you could get them for. I'm not sure what they're going for right now, but when I bought these, for the price that you could get them for, and the raw functionality of you get out of these Club Sport V2 pedals, they're fantastic pedals. But you do notice just a significant upgrade moving from pedals like this that have the load cell and do the basics to these where you get way more feel on the brake, way more diversity to the feel and ability to adjust that feel, and it's just quicker and easier to make changes. And the end result is that the PT1s are just a far more solid and in some ways more mature solution. So in my opinion, I mean, I didn't have to pay for these. As I say, ProtoSimTech kindly sent them to us, but if I could get these for the retail price in America, if I lived in America, these would be the pedals I'd just go for. I'd probably forget any other pedals. I'd just go right straight to these, because I can't really see myself needing to use any other pedals. It's kind of like if you've ever used an OSW, it's pretty much at the top end. I mean, I guess if you have a specific requirement for, for some reason you wanted load cells on the clutch and the accelerator, then I guess you could go for, I think the Huskerville pedals, I think have load cells on all of them, and there's probably some benefits to that in terms of tweaking them. Maybe if you wanted more of a sort of fluid, like a sort of mechanical fluid feel to the brake, rather than you don't like this rubber dampener feel, maybe you'd go for different pedals. But in terms of the basic functionality, I don't think that you could really improve it. I don't see how any other pedals would make me faster or would give me necessarily more feel. So yeah, as I was saying, like when you use an OSW wheel, I can't see how I'd maybe get a big Mage rather than the small Mage, or when they're higher end motors. But I couldn't really see any room for improvement in terms of how they would actually affect my core enjoyment of a simulator. And I think these pedals are basically pretty much at that level, at least for me, and I think for most sim racers, especially even sim racers that are going to put hours and hours and hours and hours into things, and sim racers that are looking for not just something that feels stronger and firmer and maybe in some ways more realistic, but in terms of performance, I think these pedals would do the job. Be really interested. There's I'll put some links in the video description from people that are probably faster and more consistent drivers than me. I don't think I've seen any alien drivers using these pedals, but if I find any videos of aliens using them, I'll put that in the description. And the thing is, though, when you're talking about raw pace, if that's your real sort of criteria for pedals, aliens will find a way to get, they could attach a potentiometer to a baked potato, and I'm sure they could still put down world record lap times. So maybe that shouldn't even be a consideration. But all in all, awesome pedals. I can't really recommend them anymore. If you were looking for an upgrade from Club Sport V2s or V3s, again, I'm really not sure of any other options. You've sort of got these, and then I think Huskerville pedals, probably butchering his name. Sorry, Niels. I'm sorry about that, but I can't think of any others that are in that sort of the same price range, because these are incredibly good value for what you actually get from them. And if you're using, you know, if you're still on your super basics, these are the pedals that come with the T300. You should just go all in. Forget about, you know, your partner potentially murdering you. Forget about responsibility. Just get some of these ordered, and you're done. You're sorted for life. But there you go. That is my sort of feedback of the PT1 pedals. I'll put other updates in the description as well, if anything happens or occurs. And don't forget to click the like button, subscribe to the channel, ask questions in the comments and I'll answer them. But until the next video, thanks for watching this, and goodbye.